into positions of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No, 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 not God Bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God damn America for treating us citizens as less than human. God damn America as long as she tries to act like she is God and she is supreme.
All right. Hello.
What's up?
Podcast. Greetings, the damned. Hello. Hey, this is Jake. I am pre-show hanging out with one of the other acts tonight. Sort of musician comedian hybrid type, very Mishka-esque. I am to understand.
Yeah.
Nick Zaccaria, correct?
Yep. Yeah, got it.
All right, we just met, but I can tell we're the same type of denim crust punk. So,
Yeah.
welcome. So that this thing is kind of true of Mishka too. But when you say like musician comedy thing, there's a lot of bad.
Yeah. God forbid I get mistaken for a guitar comic.
Yeah, like that's the first thing everyone thinks, and they think, "Oh, good lord, no."
Yeah.
But that's not quite what you guys are doing. Right?
No, not at all. Like, I think I fit similarly in that alleyway with him of like, I'm not writing funny songs, but if you pay attention to the lyrics, some of it is so sad that it's really fucking funny.
Yeah, there's a kind of interesting inversion when he's doing his act a little bit, where it's funny because I feel like sometimes the audience, like, you can tell that they're like, am I supposed to laugh right now?
Yeah, right.
And he doesn't really give them an inch. He just plays the song, and then they figure out, oh, some of these are really fucking depressing.
Yeah.
But then he tells a story in between them, and
yeah, it kind of lightens things up. And
yeah.
I realized that too, like, because I was doing just straight music for like the first 6 months. I dropped a demo tape, not last year, the year before. And I was just kind of playing it straight at punk shows, and everybody's like, man, that was a huge fucking bummer, dude. Like, we want to hear this hardcore band now. And I realized that I do way better if I like play with comedians and then have some okay-ish jokes in there. Like, no one's expecting the guy with the guitar to be the funniest comic on the fucking lineup, so it kind of takes a little bit of the pressure off.
Yeah, I guess as a performer, you're always like working, you're adjusting different levels on things and trying to figure out what balances everything out or whatever, and like, I definitely get what's going on with y'all's types of acts, and I can also empathize because I'm part of the reason I'm such a fucking pain in everyone's ass in the comedy world is that maybe I'm not really the type that is a comedian usually. Like I come from the fucking crust punk house, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm very much more like weird art minded and musically minded and stuff, and so like I do weird stuff on stage that moves people's brains in a different direction and stuff. It's like I totally get that, but I like what I obviously haven't seen you yet.
Yeah.
And so if this maybe your act will be so terrible, I'll burn this tape. You know. But if I don't understand like what ilk you guys kind of are, it's like there's kind of a nice like counterbalance thing, especially when you watch Mishka, because I saw him he cut all the songs out of his act one time, did stand up, and it was like
oh man, I would have loved to have seen that show.
It was funny because he's good, his bits are good, but I told him afterwards, I was like, if you don't have that thing where you go right into the song afterwards and it moves everything back in the depressing direction, it's like weird. Like that's how you wrote these bits, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Like, I want to make a solid effort this year to, like, go do more stand-up without my guitar, because if a bit works without the guitar, it's going to slay with it. Because you can sometimes get like a shitty joke you wrote on the drive over to the venue. You can sometimes get that to land because you're playing songs and it's just a one-liner in between two songs.
Yeah.
It's kind of a crutch that I'm trying to get away from.
I wonder if someone could be, like, both. Like high level at both.
Oh yeah, right.
You know? Like doing
without
like
intertwining
Richard Pryor level shit and then playing like Clash level music or something. That would be insane.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't know if it's possible because musicians I love. Well, I'll be like, you know, your music blows my mind, and as a comedian, I watch you on stage, and I'm like, why are you so bad at this?
Yeah, right. And yeah, I mean, at some point, because like I was doing just straight music for a while, and it just wasn't really doing what I wanted. It wasn't getting the reaction I wanted out of people. And I realized one of the things, like, there's more talented people than me, like, in the Houston scene, just to, like, keep it local to there, that have no banter, no stage presence, that they won't address something crazy going on in the audience.
Yeah.
And I feel like that takes away a lot of, like, people who I think are more talented than myself. I'm like, man, you need to not look like your first day of school when you're on stage, dude. Like, make it your bitch. They're there to see you.
Yeah, it's weird. There's like a lot to learn as a performer from this dumbass vaudevillian art form from the past, stand up. So you've been on tour for a minute. How long you been on tour?
It was like 66, 67 days straight.
And that's your first tour?
Yeah.
That's fucked up, dude.
Mishka said don't do more than 21 days, and I'm like, cool, I'm gonna do 60 some odd.
Yeah, that's
just out of spite, I guess, out of being fucking 21 and someone telling me good advice.
Yeah.
It's like, let me steer in the complete opposite direction.
That's completely insane. I am proud of you.
Appreciate
You're
it.
Alive. Sort of.
Barely.
You seem alive.
Yeah.
But what's some crazy shit that's happened on the road?
Fucking a lot. At one stretch of the road in Louisiana, I think we're going from Houma to New Orleans in the middle of the night to get in New Orleans early enough the next day that we could go street perform and busk and try and drum up some money before the show. And fucking on some random stretch of I-10, we came across a car just on its fucking side and some lady standing next to it crying.
Oh shit.
And so I was like, yo, pull the fucking truck over, let's see what's up. And then right then, like, she was telling me, she's like, no, I'm fine, there's no one else in the car, and the cops pulled up. I just ran back to my car as, like, our duty's done.
Yeah.
It's like we stopped and checked on her. I'm drunk as fuck, and we're going across the country. I don't need to interact with the cop. Fucking all sorts of shit, man.
That's crazy. I guess she was just crying just because her car.
I guess because she flipped her car. I thought she seemed like a little buzzed. My buddy's like, no, I think you were just so buzzed that you thought they were also. I was like,
that car is drunk.
Right.
Wake it up.
I was like, man, I don't know how the fuck you would flip your car on this straight-ass stretch of road, though.
Yeah. Well.
I was like, I don't think I could roll this SUV if I tried on this fucking stretch of road.
Oh, it's impressive.
Yeah. And then we went off-roading outside of Denver. We hit black ice, and basically the car fishtailed back and forth, and it hooked, like, at a perfect right angle across, like, the other side of the road. So they have those big trenches when it's like a 2-lane freeway going each way. We just full speed jumped that fucking bitch and jumped the whole opposing lane of traffic. We landed, got out. Damien said a prayer to David Bowie, thanking him for protection.
This is in what kind of vehicle?
Ford Explorer,
you
99.
Just did Mario Kart shit in the Ford Explorer?
Yeah, we fucking jumped the shit out of it. Like, you'll sometimes hit train tracks too fast and you feel like the car went up a little. No, we literally were like 5 fucking feet in the air. Jumped both lanes, did not touch the concrete, like, at all.
Good lord.
And we fucking landed. Everything was okay. I was like, well, I should tell the booker that we're going to be a little late because we both need to stop and clean shit out of our pants.
Yeah.
He's like, what do we do? I was like, we stop at a liquor store, dude. I need to celebrate. We just almost fucking died and then didn't.
Yeah, you definitely just take a load off for a minute after that.
Like, man, let's just stop at the gas station. I just want to smoke a cigarette and get a beer. Like,
kiss dry land,
Yeah.
Like a pirate.
I think that's probably the more crazier shit.
Yeah.
Other than, like, in fucking Lake Charles, just finding fucking blow in the restroom. That was awesome. Yeah,
that's always an interesting one, just finding a drug that very much could not be what it seems like it is. Not gonna lie, it's happened to me before.
Right.
I feel like that's how I accidentally did meth the first time.
Dude, yeah, man, I accidentally did meth a few times, and a couple times on purpose.
Yeah.
It was way better on accident.
I think you start by doing it on accident.
Yeah.
That's how it works. Not an uncommon story. Cool, man. Well, so let's talk a little bit more about your act. What kind of music are you kind of into and inspired by? Because I feel like we're both like these folk punk types.
Yeah, I'd say folk punk, but aside from Mishka Shubaly, that's the worst fan base to ever fucking be a part of. I hate saying folk punk because I like cringe myself when I say it.
It's all these. Sometimes you find yourself couched in a genre.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I'm technically a guitar comic, and I'm technically a folk punk, but don't take either of those things into account because I don't like either
on this shit. Like,
yeah.
And then at this point, I'm kind of almost hesitating to call it folk punk because I'm going more into like bluesy shit.
Yeah.
I guess too much time around Mishka or whatever, but
they'll definitely rub off on you. I feel like this tour, it feels very like A Star Is Born to me. Like, every night, especially the various things that me and him are both writing, it's so dramatic.
Right? So yeah, I mean, I guess I'd say it's folk punk instrumentation because when I get in the studio, I'm not that great of a musician. I can play guitar, I can play bass, I can fuck around with my harmonica a little bit, but then I bring in people that actually know what they're doing, like mandolin players. I met this awesome fucking harmonica player through AA, ironically enough.
Cool.
Because that ended up working out. It's so swell.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers that. But then, like, the comedy, like, I'm not doing what Mishka is. He's telling great stories that happen to be funny along the way.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of just writing straight material that makes fun of my songs.
Gotcha.
More or less. So it's less storytelling and more like, here's a dumbass joke about why I got dumped, and here's the song I wrote about it afterwards. Like,
yeah.
It's really self-deprecating. Like it's like here's a song about like hey, what's up, man?
Oh, hey. Breckenridge.
I see you again.
What up? Say hello to the podcast.
Oh, hi. Oh, shit. Hi, podcast. Hi, Pod Damn America. I remember the name.
We'll be done. We'll wrap this up here in a minute, and then we'll come party. Right. Put the show together.
I mean, it's something I can't really describe, because I try to not let up on going dark with material.
Yeah.
Like, that's way too easy to do when you're going to play a sad song after it, so you gotta, like... I, like, heard someone cry laughing at the back of a room the other night going, man, that's so fucking dark. Why'd you say that? And just cry laughing, and I was like, that's exactly what I want. Like, that's the reaction I aim for.
Yeah. That's what me and Mishka's kind of shows like. That's why we always get a book, a really goofy comic to open. And,
yeah, right.
Mike Wiebe from the Riverboat Game.
Oh, I fucking love that dude.
And he's hilarious. The other night he was on stage and he said he was doing the, dumb as hell material, and he goes, listen, I'm the Looney Tunes that goes on before Schindler's List.
That's perfect.
Oh man, that guy, I love Mike. He fucking kills me.
Oh hell yeah, I think I've seen him 2-3 times at this point. Every time it's been fucking stellar.
He's like Iggy Pop in that he's real hardcore when he plays music, and then when he's talking he's like, hey, how's it going? But when he does stand up, so that's him talking, and so he's like, he's that side of Iggy when he's on stage doing stand-up.
If either my music or my stand-up were better, I'd probably do them separately.
Well, we all gotta have a grift.
Yeah, right.
And for most of us, it's the whole thing.
Right. It's, hey, buy a fucking t-shirt, dude.
Well, where can people see you and, come out, catch a live show, fucking see a house show, buy a shirt, all the shit we're doing,
It's Nick Zaccaria on Facebook, on Twitter and Instagram, I'm Nick Zaccaria69, all lowercase.
Nice. One
word. On Facebook, I'm just Nick Zaccaria, NickZaccaria. Same thing on Bandcamp, iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, pretty much anywhere you can get music except Pandora, because they suck.
Right.
So yeah, I'm gonna be in Houston probably till March or April at least. Drum up some more money, go back on the road.
Cool.
We'll be at a Super Happy Funland on the 13th of February. Yeah, come smell the human feces that lines the fucking walls of that amazing venue.
We were talking about this off pod, but I've played it, and it's you have to.
Dude, my favorite Yelp review is like, I'm only giving this 3 stars because there was shit on the seat I sat in. Otherwise, it's a cool place. And I'm like, yeah, it's about how that goes.
Oh, I thought it was going to be the other way around. It was going to be 0, but there was shit on the seat. so and I have 3. Very specific interests. Cool, rad. All right, well, follow Nick and check out his shit. It's gonna be fucking rad, unless it's the worst thing I've ever seen in the podcast.
It's up in the air.
But I think I could tell what type we are. We're both the same type of dirtbag. Like. So cool, awesome.
Buy a t-shirt. It keeps me drinking beer. So they're $10. PayPal to me. I'll mail it to you.
Hell yeah.
Add me on Facebook, fuck.
Cool. All right.
Thanks, man.
Rode my bike to the interstate. I stepped under that bridge. There I found the remains of who I was when I was a kid. A liar and an ugly cheat, yeah, I guess not a lot has changed. The funniest and saddest thing is I got more drunk back in those days than I said. I was more drunk back in those days. I was more drunk back in those days. Tried to ride my bike down to the bridge one more time after that. Or at least I made an attempt, but I hopped on my bike and both my tires were flat. So I walked to the store where I 5-finger scored an air pump. Someone stole my bike by the time that I walked back, cause life's just like that. I'm going back in those days. I'm going back in those days.
All right, so I recorded that interview with Nick Zaccaria before I watched him perform, and he was a bit of a, folk punk road rat, a guy going through some stuff. And I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't know quite what to expect, but he opened for me at that show in Pantego or DFW, or however the fuck that works. That city that's inside of a city, that whole thing that's going on over there in the Fort Worth area. And he was great. He was awesome. He was right up my alley. And I could kind of tell we were going to get along when we were listening to, like, Days and Days and AJJ and stuff like that in the car. And, Mischief Brew and that sort of stuff. And I'm glad I was correct in assuming that this dude was, a black jortsy sort of service industry, mess, like myself. And so, that was him playing. That was one of his tracks. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't want to give away entirely his sort of the comedy aspect of his set, because he does a little bit of what, Mishka does, where he writes the jokes in between the set. But definitely go see, if you're in Texas, because this guy's based out of Houston, go see Nick Zaccaria. His closing bit is, really funny in like a musical way, without giving away, the joke. I'll let you know the thing he does to close his set is he starts playing the song Wagon Wheel, which is, beat to death at this point, and the entire, mood in the room drops because nobody wants to hear Wagon Wheel. It's been played enough times on this planet, and then it takes a turn, and I won't tell you what it is. You should go see Nick Zaccaria if you get a chance. I recorded that a few days ago in, Dallas, and I am now getting back on the mic. What is it? Where am I? Phoenix? That was crazy. I don't know what happened. That tour's been very interesting. Some of these episodes are going to come out kind of cut up like Pulp Fiction style, and it may not make sense narratively, but, it's the best way for it to come out, to get all these people their exposure and everything. Thank you for coming out to the shows. I've had comedy comrades at every show. It's been great. I got a t-shirt from North Texas DSA. It says fully automated queer luxury space communism, which I proceeded to wear into the walking into the most dangerous redneck bar I've seen in quite some time in Amarillo, and did battle with a bunch of drunks there. That was a lot of fun. Had a great show in Albuquerque in front of a bunch of people that looked like, I don't know how else to put it, old Trumpy cop supporters, but they loved it, except for one guy who was stone-faced staring at me the whole time. But great time. A really old lady was dying laughing at this poppers joke I have, and I guess, I'm an asshole for being surprised because, how do you think you get old? It's by fucking a lot, It's weird that we think that about old people, that they didn't party back in their day, But anyway, I'm kind of giving a tour update here because I wanted to mention something that should really be recorded and sort of announced to the world. Is that if you listen to the last tour update, I did, and I had my friend Joe Stats come on to kind of raise money for his dog's surgery, and we got really drunk and told that story about his uncle, the legendary drunk Okie Roy. Well, there's a footnote in that story that you might remember where I talked about this slam poet who opened for us, whose name was Tapestry, and who was kind of a mess and was interesting and very enthusiastic, and I hadn't thought about him in 10 years until we told that story. Well, lo and behold, I walked into the damn venue in Albuquerque, and this guy came up to me and he said, "Hey, Jake, do you remember me?" And it was fucking Tapestry. It was the weirdest goddamn thing ever. And I went, "Oh, yeah, I was just talking about you, oddly enough." And then it turns out he's, kind of doing straight stand-up now, and he opened the show, and he's yelling about, the Gulf War that he was in, that he got gassed in and shit, and making fun of all the gun nuts out in, this part of town. And he was great. It was awesome, I had a great time watching him, and he was actually a really sweet dude, man. And he told me all about what's going on in his life now. We hung out, and it was fucking awesome. So I never would imagine that would happen. That was, wild. And then me and Mishka rolled down to Tucson last night, and as we were talking, driving in the car, this car pulled up next to us and rolled down the window, and this guy yelled, "Are you Mishka Shubaly?" And he's like, "Yeah." And the guy goes, "I saw you here. I saw you play 15 years ago." And then he pulled up his iPod, and he showed us that he was listening to Mishka on his fucking iPod. And we're just like, how are these coincidental things happening, What is the universe trying to tell you, So then we go play this show in Tucson last night at this brewery, and we've been traveling around under the stars trying to make sense of our lives and pull some meaning out of this big weird fucking country, And she was playing this song to close out the show, one of his last songs he plays in his set. That's kind of a funny song about being old and having sex, I guess, and the chorus is, "I'm a train wreck, you're a graveyard," and as he says, "I'm a train wreck," a fucking train goes by and honks and screeches and interrupts his goddamn song. Weirdest thing in the world. I don't know what the fuck is going on out here in the desert, but I'm into it. Anyways, thanks for listening. I've got another artist that I want to talk to. Let me welcome to the show Dave Dondero. Welcome.
Oh, thanks. Nice to see you.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Say hello to my listeners. They call themselves the Damned for some reason.
Hello, Damned. From rainy Phoenix. We speak to you from rainy, flooded Phoenix.
Oh yeah,
Arizona.
Yeah, I've been touring under a cloud. It's been quite gloomy, and I guess on brand for my the goth socialism that we've sort of invented on this podcast. Dave, thank you for coming on the show. I'm really glad to have you because sometimes me and Mishka are, driving around, and because he's not, we're friends as like artists or whatever, and we talk about music and comedy and stuff all day, and every once in a while, because he's not quite obsessed with politics in the way that I am, and as an extremely online, horrible millennial person, he'll just go, "Oh shit, low-hanging fruit. You should talk to my friend Dave. This makes perfect sense," you know. And he played me a little bit of your music. I'm like, "Yeah, Mishka, of course. Like, why hadn't we thought of this before?" And so we listened to some of your stuff, and if I am to understand the way he explained it to me, it seems like you kind of have two styles of music that you've played, and you know, it seems like your earlier stuff was a little bit more personal, and then you've sort of turned to a more folky, like political direction. Does that sound about right, or am I getting that entirely wrong?
Well, recently I've gone way political with the newer songs over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And you know, in the past I'd been more, you know, introspective about my life or people experiences.
Yeah.
But I didn't get too political with most of my stuff through the first 9 records, but you know, touched on it a little. But I can't help it this go around. It's just been coming at me. I have to say something about it.
Yeah, that's something I talk about on this show a bit, which is like I mean, you say 3 years ago, that's like exactly when it changed for a lot of people, you know. And I think like just the way we think about our lives in America, not even just as like, you know, people that create stuff, but just a lot of people, the world just changed for them in that way. Mm-hmm. And I definitely, back in the Obama days, was very introspective and very much thought that, you know, the point of being on this planet and creating stuff and life in general was sort of like digging inside and, you know, writing that great, you know, crazy Bukowski story or whatever, you know. And then I think, you know, I changed forever when I started getting more involved in paying attention and reading history and stuff like that, and going out and doing organizing and things like that whenever I could. And you know, now I actually feel very fulfilled by the extroversion thing, you know. And like, to me, that's like where the context of political art exists. And I don't know, I mean, but I go back and forth with it, and it's a thing that, you know, I talk to people that make stuff about all the time, because, you know, sometimes I also still like to do straight introspective stuff. But yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, yeah, I'm right there with you. I started this podcast, you know, the day after Charlottesville. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But tell me about your you were gonna play a song that's a little bit more comedic, to understand. Like, you have, like, you know, music that's sort of commentary on.
Yeah, I mean, this one is more like a sing-along crowd song, or a doo-wop hit.
Yeah.
It's a doo-wop hit in 48 countries. #1 smash single song.
Yeah.
But just like, this isn't a real guitar, and that's not even a microphone we're looking at.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's the name of this song?
It's called "A Presidential Palace of Pornography."
I love it. Well, let's hear it, and then we'll riff a little bit.
All right. From the presidential palace of pornography, doo-wop, doo-wop, turning us into a third-rate country, shoo-wop, shoo-wop. The anti-intellectual and the proudly dumb, doo-wop, doo-wop, waving flags, and they're having some fun now that the presidential palace has a stripper pole. The Oval Office is lined in fake gold. Ted Nugent's got a stranglehold. They like to keep the women under control. Great. Make it great again. Great. Just for them. From the presidential palace of bigotry, the treasonous office of impunity, they got a magic weapon and it's smoke and mirrors. As the grand old party all hail to their Fuhrer, they can't win fair, so they gerrymander. The truth hurts, they called it fake news and slander, played to paranoia and religious shame. with bathroom bill, distraction games. Hate, they're making folks hate again. Hate, it's all they're doing. From the presidential palace of indignity, they disassemble a democracy. Took the Constitution to the paper shredder, blamed it on the intern while drafting up the letter. Reality TV, idiocracy. They pledge allegiance to the wealth and the money. Those poor rich folks need all the help they could get. Like billionaires are cashing welfare checks now. Great. Make it great again. Great. Just for them. From the presidential palace of indignity. Wait, I fucked it up. Now the presidential palace has a flaming cesspool, surrounded by zombies who closed down the school, privatized the prison for the new slavery, and let your houses burn cause you didn't pay your fee. And the EPA, it slipped away, all the scientific data got dumped in the bay, and the Cuyahoga River caught fire again, and they were dancing on the shore, all these rich old businessmen singing great. They're making it great again. Great. Unbridled capitalism. With their Supreme Court judge now to twist the law, with his drunk rape entitled frat boy character flaw. He's gonna hold true all your family values with his Christian belief and his unbiased views. He said we'll reap the whirlwind appointed for life, as he calmly took the oath with his kids and his wife, while thousands of protesters raged on that day. Democracy died, and he smiled and he said, great, make it great again. Great. We're gonna reap his whirlwind. So the presidential palace sent a motorcade, doo-wop, doo-wop, to roll coal dust all over the Earth Day parade, shoo-wop, shoo-wop. While they were getting golden showers in the presidential suite, doo-wop, doo-wop. In the casino tower, built on Pennsylvania Avenue. Great. Make it great again. Great. Just for them. Great. For the wealthy family. Great. For the banking industry. Great. For the oil industry. Great. For the snakes of Wall Street. Great. But not for you and me.
Hell yeah, that was fucking great. I can edit out that part where you fucked up, but I almost feel like it was cool.
It might be, yeah. I usually fuck it up.
It reminded me, and I'm sure this is like an obnoxious comparison you must get sometimes, but it reminded me of some of those Bright Eyes records where kind of where still you'll hear, you know.
I've been compared to him many times.
Yeah,
he's a big influence on me.
Is he really?
Yes.
Okay, because there's two ways that it can go when you tell someone the thing that they hear all the time, which is, yeah, it's my favorite, I love that shit, or I'm so tired of hearing this. I don't actually like this person, you know.
If it wasn't for his voice, I wouldn't be doing this today.
Fucking A. Good to know, because I'm a fan, you know, of both of y'all. Well, you now. But yeah, that totally reminded me of one of those. He used to leave it in the track when he would record it, where they'd fuck up, and then you just hear someone laugh in the back of the studio, you know, and they would start the song over again. I always thought that was so cool. Yeah, that was awesome. That was right up my alley. Very cleverly written, you know, folk lyrics. How did you, you know, not to beat you with the basic interview questions, but like, how long have you been playing music?
Well, I started in the early 80s. I guess the first thing I did was probably in like 87.
Yeah.
The first like cassette with the Fat Stinkin' Belgian Bastards.
Cool.
But then I was in Sunbrain from the first band that had a CD out. It was in 1991.
Yeah.
92, 93 time frame.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a while, but doing the solo stuff, I started solo in 98. I guess I put out a record. I've been going that way ever since.
Cool.
But yeah.
Have you been touring the whole time?
Not the whole time. You know, like it's waxes and wanes, you know. I do you know, every kitchen job known to man.
Yeah.
You know, I've done the cooking, the waiting tables, the bartending, the watch the door. I've done the carpentry, the painting, the block masonry, you know, renovation, all the renovation and driving jobs and in between. But, you know, I try to stay on the road as much as possible because I'd rather do this than that.
Yeah.
You know, it can be a little depressing sometimes, but mostly not. I love to travel. I love it, man. I'm stoked to go to Flagstaff tomorrow and yeah, just keep rolling forward. I dig it.
Yeah.
I love it. No matter how many times you see the country, it's always exciting, you know.
Yeah, no, I'm like so happy to be out right now. And yeah, the service industry sort of part of it is, it's funny because, you know, if you do stand-up or music or something like that long enough, the end of it is you open a restaurant because you know how to do every fucking thing in the restaurant at that point, you know?
Yeah.
That'll probably be my end game at some point. But it's interesting if you've been working in music that long because, you know, I imagine the economics of it have changed to the nth degree. I mean, I've been doing stand-up like 12 years, and within that I've, you know, had 10 different ideas of what success is in this world, because it used to be, you know, for us it was like you get that, you know, that job on a TV show and then you're set, and then, you know, slowly things started paying less and less and less, and, you know, you don't really sell albums as much anymore and stuff. But you know, we found a way to sort of make this show float on Patreon, and you have a Patreon as well, yes?
Yeah, that's been really keeping me alive. And I have one too. Yeah, it's Patreon /Dave Dondero. Dave Dondero.
It's 1 or 2 R's.
Just one. It's DAVEDONDERO.
Cool.
Just Patreon /Dave Dondero.
I'll plug it in the show notes and everything, and hopefully you'll get some people from me, because yeah, I mean, like, Patreon's cool because it works, but I find it to be the most ethical way of getting my stuff out there, just because it's like direct to the people and not really a middleman and stuff. So definitely check out Dave's Patreon if you're into this stuff, and you know, or come out and see a show and all that stuff.
There's writing there too. I do a lot of writing releases there on my Patreon.
Cool. But, and I guess so. I wanted to ask you about this, and I wanted to sort of twist your arm and get you to play this song, because we listened to it in the van and it was, you know, chilling, and I thought, oh, I got to talk to this guy and pick his brain now. But you wrote a song about Heather Heyer, which is, you know, quite a topic to tackle, but I thought you did you know, tremendous job with portraying the weight of this event, of her being killed by, you know, that neo-Nazi back in Charlottesville, and the implications and the
what we should do afterwards with this moment in history. And one of the things I do in this podcast is I'm a comedian, so a lot of times we'll, our job is to viciously, tear apart the people that that did the wrong thing after that news came out, on both sides of the aisle, to be quite frank. There are there's this woman Joy-Ann Reid who has some TV show on whatever cable news, and I just remember, because Heather Heyer was like a socialist, and she was like a wobbly, I think she I'll cut that out if I got that wrong. She was involved in a major labor organization, and and at that time there was this big sort of split in the and still there's a big split between like the centrist Democrats and like people that are kind of getting out and more involved and more into no, just be an unapologetic socialist, and you don't have to be an incrementalist about this. A lot of these people, and this woman Joy-Ann Reid, she had the advice to everyone is don't politicize this person's death. That's what you say when you don't agree with someone's politics and they die, but you still want to capitalize off of it. And so Joy-Ann Reid, I remember she tweeted out, she said, Heather Heyer's favorite color was purple. And I just thought, that is not the most important part of the story, Mm-hmm. That's cool. I'm glad to know that. But, but her death certainly meant something. And I think, no one can speak on behalf of the dead, but, when you have friends that are heavily involved in politics, technically, generally they don't go down, yelling, "Tell them my favorite color was purple," And so there's something rather brilliant that you did with the lyrics in the song, where the name Heather Heyer rhymes with magnifier, and I found it really chilling and really, just on the nose. It's the perfect way of sort of remembering her, because the most important thing about what happened at Charlottesville is that we magnify this, and that it's not forgotten, and we learn from it, especially now that the news cycle is so crazy and things can be easily forgotten. Correct me if I'm getting any of this wrong.
You're not, and I firmly agree that her name should be remembered historically in American history, in the history books. In fact, I think they should build a monument of her and put that in place of the Confederate monument, because I think her death represents a patriotic death. Her death represents what America is supposed to stand for, as equality for all people. She was out there on the street protesting against bigotry, and she lost her life because of it. And people being complacent allow this form of bigotry to rise up again, and it takes people to get on the street and be willing to die for it,
Yeah.
Willing to die for equality. Because this is what this country is about: is equality for every person, every person, and it's one giant community.
Yeah.
I sorry, I'm babbling, but
no, please.
I feel very strongly about that. I think Heather Heyer it's a patriotic death, standing up for what's right, for equality.
Yeah, I agree. My only kind of caveat with these sorts of things is that, I think I would call her better than a patriot, because I mean the name of my show is Pod Damn America. Mm-hmm. It's sort of a joke about how America isn't actually great and wasn't great, but it could be,
I agree.
And it's the future is where it'll be about equality, because often when we tell people, they were a patriot, well, that gets misconstrued as, they love America and they're a nationalist, and that's what their opponents were, this is about America. And often, what people are fighting for isn't so much even just about the state we live in. It's just about like human life, and the sanctity of it. But, But I mean, I agree. We're all working towards the same thing.
That's the ultimate goal, is equality of all people.
Yeah.
And I realize what you're saying in the past is it's definitely not been that in America. It's been a tedious evolution,
Yeah.
And it's been a violent evolution, and it's disgusting, but we gotta keep pushing forward
Right.
into this ultimate goal of complete equality for
Yeah. The reason I like to think about it that way is because, Make America Great Again is sort of rooted in this idea that that there was this... The greatness is in the past, and I think it's actually in the future,
And and that is just, like I was saying before, is complete sarcasm.
Right, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. You think that's great? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I really liked the sarcastic great in that song. Yeah, well, man, you want to lay it down?
Yeah. This was a hard song to put forth,
Yeah.
It's
If you don't want to, I completely
I
understand.
will. I just I will. This is Heather Heyer, magnify her. Heather Heyer, magnify her.
Exactly.
Wait. Dark days are going down. There's a virus upon the town. Swept through Charlottesville against the town folks' will. The virus attacks the brain, makes folks hateful and insane, feeds off ignorance, flourishes on violence, and attacks the innocent. Heather Heyer, 32 years old. Heather Heyer lost her life. You can't blame both sides. You can't shame both sides. Heather Heyer lost her life. In the name of equality, protesting bigotry, for the love of humanity. Every culture and community, stamp out this bigotry. Heather Heyer, 32 years old. Heather Heyer lost her life. For equality, protesting bigotry. Heather Heyer lost her life. From the cops up the chain of command to the highest office in the land, the virus ate their brains, made them hateful and insane, while the inclusive community built up strength and immunity, and a statue to honor thee. And the plaque will read, Heather Heyer, 32 years old. Heather Heyer lost her life. For equality, protesting bigotry. Heather Heyer lost her life. Heather Heyer, magnify her.
That was incredible. Dave, thank you very much. Where can my listeners find you online and follow you?
At the Patreon, either that or which is Dave Dondero, or at my website, which is davedondero.com.
Cool.
Or at Bandcamp, which is daveddondero1 at Bandcamp.
Cool. Well, yeah, hit up Dave and listen to his music. That was fucking great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I just turned off the mics and then we started talking, and then I just did this thing where I went, holy shit. Sometimes this happens with podcasting where once you're not on the mic anymore and you just start talking, something happens because you're relaxed and you go, oh, this is actually a really interesting story. And so once I turned off this mic, you went, Mischief Brew, do you know the guy from Mischief Brew? And I went, I don't actually know him, just a fan, and I didn't even know he had passed. But you guys were friends?
I was good friends with Eric Peterson, and his wife Denise. He passed almost 3 summers ago now. Yeah.
So that's just an incredible coincidence, I guess, because of the stuff we've been talking about, and because we were just talking about Heather Heyer. I started this podcast right after Charlottesville, and the first episode that we did, that's way back, and that, before we got even famous mildly on the internet, it's way back in our archives, so a lot of people haven't heard it, so I'm going to tell the story again. But I was talking about this phrase, pie in the sky, because that's what a lot of people yell at you when they want you to give up on what you're fighting for, is, oh, that's a pie in the sky, you gotta relax and buy what we're selling and all this stuff.
Yeah. And
I was reading some Howard Zinn at the time, and I looked up the etymology of this phrase, pie in the sky, and it comes from a Joe Hill song, and it's a really good song. And so I looked it up, and I was like, oh, I'll play it as the outro of this podcast that we're making. And sure enough, there's a fucking sick Mischief Brew cover of this Joe Hill song, Preacher and the Slave. And it's this great song, where Joe Hill, when he was traveling around, he would do carny stuff, where he'd roll into town and he'd go, help, I've been robbed, and then people would run out into the street, and he'd go, I've been robbed by capitalism, and then he'd step up and play a song or whatever. And the song is it's about because long-haired preachers come out every night, they tell you what's wrong and what's right, yada yada yada. It's this folk song, and it's about how they tell you, especially the preachers in this folk song tell you, you can't eat today because you'll have pie in the sky when you die, right? So it's get back to work, don't worry about it. This is the trick that they tell you, You'll be happy when you die, and not now, and you shouldn't fight, for this now. But but Mischief Brew has a fucking awesome cover of it, and we played it as the outro. So I just thought it was an incredible coincidence. All these coincidences are happening to me out here.
It's all aligning.
Yeah. Crazy. I don't know. All right, well, anyway, thanks again.
Yeah.
Okay, that was Dave Dondero, who, something interesting happened after we shut off the microphones. This often happens with podcasting, I think, where people are, nervous or just in a certain mindset. A counterintuitive thing happens sometimes where you talk and then you finish the fucking podcast and you press stop, and then as soon as you press stop, everyone in the room relaxes, and then you start talking freely, which is what you were trying to do on the podcast. And so he was great, our segment on the show, but as soon as we started talking, just kind of shooting the shit after the mics turned off, I realized I gotta have this guy back on next time we run into each other, because I kind of didn't realize the caliber of person I was dealing with, and he told me that and also you know, he said that he was in France during the Yellow Vest riots and shit. And he said that, I was like, fuck, I should have asked him about that. But he also said something that was extremely peculiar and funny, and I could tell I was talking to a guy with a very fascinating mind. He said, I did a joke during the podcast. And I went, what do you mean? Did you? Like, I don't remember. And so apparently when I compared him to Conor Oberst, and he said, oh yeah, I'm a fan. He said, I wouldn't be the musician I am if it wasn't for Conor Oberst. And then afterwards he told me that that's actually a Conor Oberst quote about him. So for anyone who's very, very specifically like really into Bright Eyes or something, I guess enjoy that joke, because it didn't register as a joke to fucking any of the rest of us. And I'm a big fan, but but that was cool. That was like an Easter egg, I guess. Anyways, yeah, check that guy out, and you know, if you can throw some money as Patreon, do so, because that helps us all. Anyways, to kind of round out this this music specific tour audio diary thing, I'm gonna talk to my partner in crime here, my fucking tour wife, the Rick to my Morty. Welcome to the show, Mishka Shubaly.
Howdy, partner.
Happy birthday, Mishka.
Fuck you.
I hope it's exactly like you dreamed of. Everything you wanted. Podcasting, moving furniture around.
I got a text from a buddy, and he was like, so how are you celebrating it? And I was like, man, I'm fucking like 15 years away from celebrating any birthday. It's just, at this point, it's just sort of like, it's like a death row thing. I'm like, haha, still here, fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way. I didn't do shit for my birthday. Well, except in Amarillo. When,
Fuck you, buddy. I didn't get a steak.
Oh, ooh.
Deep cut.
Oh, that was deep indeed. So, we just did this run. It's the second one we've done together. It had sort of a True Detective vibe, in my opinion. I know you haven't seen the show, but I feel like we always get into these weird, like, buddy cop sort of you know, scenarios when we go on the road. It's fun being in the van and kicking around every idea under the sun with you. Hopefully I never see you again, though.
I know, right? Most of my like long tours with a friend end like that, where it's like, man, you know, this is an incredible experience. I feel like we, you know, got to know so much about each other, and like, they'll talk to you never. I know what time of day you shit now. I know, like, yeah,
all day.
You know everything.
So if anyone has been a listener for a minute, the last time Mishka was on the show, we talked about, you know, anti-fascism and some stuff you had done, and some, you know, an adventure you had going out and fucking with alt-right Nazis and shit. But this week, and on this little three-part stitched together interview series, I want to talk more about music, which I guess, you know, it's funny being friends with musicians like guys like you and Blake Midget. I never really ask you about, you know, why, how, how do you become a fucking musician? What is going on in your life that leads to these things? You know, the basic shit.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think, you know, part of it's the same thing that leads somebody to comedy, which is to say, you know, insecurity, like, oh, I found a life hack for, like, getting pussy, or getting attention, or, you know, I mean, I remember, the way that I remember it is, like, I remember hearing Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
And then just being like, fuck everything else. Like, this is it. But then I went back, and it's so funny the way that, like, memory fucks with you, is that I went back through my childhood, and I was like, well, I didn't hear it on, like, my dad's records. My dad listened to, like, Beach Boys and CCR, but I don't think he had any Chuck Berry. And then I was like, well, where did I hear it? And I think my first memory of hearing Chuck Berry is actually hearing Michael J. Fox on Back to the Future.
Sure.
Doing
and
which is funny because it's like, you know, it's Chuck Berry is still sort of like an authentic name drop and be like, oh yeah, no, my greatest musical influence is a white Canadian actor named Michael J. Fox.
Well, it's also interesting because of like the time travel plot in that movie, and then like how it affects you and causes you to be someone that then later learns who the previous person who influenced that movie.
Oh God,
like there's
really
all
gonna
that.
go down a whole fucking wormhole with
Dude,
this.
I can't stop thinking about it because all this weird synchronicity shit just like keeps happening.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned the train the other night on the fucking
that was eerie.
Yeah. I don't know. A lot of stuff in this tour has been like extremely on the nose, but it's weird. I think I enjoy touring so much because, like, you know, as a comedian and then, you know, as writers and then as you being a musician, like, you know, we're kind of like living through a lot of stuff right now, whereas when you're stationary, you take it all and you sort of you dust it all off and you compartmentalize it, and then you kind of live, you know, a little bit separated. You're a degree separated from, like, you know, all these lines that you wrote, you know, and all these clever things. But like, as we're sort of working through a lot of just the process of traveling and the process of working on all this shit, it kind of feels like you're in a sitcom or like a Aaron Sorkin thing, where when you watch it, you're like, people don't actually talk that cleverly, you know?
It's one of the best and worst thing about tour is that it is just this like constant stream of information, and I mean, I feel like I'm still processing shit that happened to me in like 2003, because it's you know, Sam Talent opens his book with this great quote, which I think is from fucking Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter or something like that, you know, which
That's
is
fucking rules
of like, you know, this is the greatest day of your life, the day that I came into your life. But for me, it was just a Tuesday.
Yeah.
You know, which is to say that, like, when you're on the road, you know, it's like we go through a fucking 90-minute, you know, sort of like teen hijinks movie worth of slapstick and pratfalls and heartbreak. And that's just fucking Monday on the road, and there's no time to process it or unpack it, because you have to find a place to crash, and then you wake up the next morning and it fucking starts again, and there's all the like, is the van gonna make it, did it get broken into, what's the deal with this show tonight, where are we staying, just, you know, to say nothing of like all the dramas in your home life that keep unfolding even while you're fucking on the road, regardless of what's, you know, happening for you.
Yeah. What's that sound?
I think it's just a rattling shelf with the passing train.
That's what it was. Whoa, spooky. Yeah, no, I, like, you know, I'm usually extremely online and sort of like, you know, keeping track of all the crazy shit that happens in the news in, like, you know, one day at a time. And that's often what this show is about or whatever. But like, having been on tour for 2 weeks or a month or whatever, actually I've been out for a fucking month right now.
Yeah.
Like I check every once in a while, and it was like trying to take a snapshot of a fucking train as it's screeching by or something. I was like, wait, he said what? And then fucking who said what about the Jews? Like, it was like we were, you know, moving at an entirely different rate from like the rest of reality, you know.
It's interesting because it does. I mean, it both gives you perspective into people who are like sort of like living the real lives, you know, not the people who are like, oh, I'm checking in at the fucking, you know, Standing Rock or whatever, but the people who are actually there, like actually doing shit, and that their lives is not just consuming the news cycle, but like solving real problems in real time.
Yeah. But I don't know, in some ways though, like, I have to do it, and I got so much fucking work done on this tour, like, material wise, and it's making me realize that, like, I build material by doing this, and like not really by being stationary, which you know, I don't know, everyone has their own process or whatever, but I think I've always known that, because when I moved to New York, the first thing I did is I put this fucking
mirror on my wall, and in Sharpie it says tour all the time on it, and it was supposed to be this fucking The Secret thing where I woke up and went, people like you and you're loved, and also you need to tour all the time, you know, feel like you're on tour even when you're not. And
does it say that on your mirror, like people like you crossed out, like you are loved crossed out, and then just tour all the time?
Basically. But I was trying to remind myself to like be in this mode even when I was getting up and going to a job every day, and I don't know if it really is possible. Like I tried to, but the creative process or whatever the fuck happens to your head like only works when you're like this, I guess.
So we talk a little bit about like the weird convergences on the road of like how everything seems to relate to something else, and then you're like, you get this sensation that you're like, I'm about to see the pattern, or I'm about to see the fucking Matrix, or like we're about to come to a moment of like great meaning, and what that actually means is that you're losing your fucking mind. And so one of the things that I keep coming back to, which it's kind of a dumb reference, but it's actually a brilliant story, which is The Jaunt by Stephen King.
Yeah.
Do you recall this story?
No. Tell me about it.
Okay, so it's basically that this guy invents teleportation, and the story is told both. There's the narrative of a family that are like, going to the teleportation airport, and so it's intercut with that, and then with stories of like how teleportation was invented. And basically the guy who invents teleportation, he's putting rats through, and when he puts them through and they're conscious, they go insane and like pull their eyes out or whatever.
Yeah.
But when he puts them through and they've been sedated, they go through fine. And so then there's this like 9-year-old kid who's going through the teleportation, and he's like, I want to see what it's like. I'm curious. I want to know the information. So when they give him the gas mask to put him out for the teleportation, he like, doesn't breathe in and just pretends that he's knocked out. So then he goes through, and then when he comes out at the end, he's like, I saw it all, Dad. He's got the, that sort of like the cliche things of like, his eyes are white and his hair is white, and he's like, longer than you thought, Dad, longer than you thought, and I saw it all. I saw everything. And you get that from fucking touring, dude. That weird, like, we could just talk this entire podcast about Dondero because he's such a fascinating character and like such a great guy and such a great artist. But you can tell, looking at him too, he has that 1,000-mile stare. Yeah. And you can tell that he's fucking seen too much and like hasn't had time to process it. And that there's like sort of, at once when you're on the road, the sky becomes the ceiling in your living room, and it feels protective, and also you never feel safe, and you always feel exposed, and like just I did 5 months without a break last year, and by the end of it I was just a raw nerve and just like crying in gas stations and fucking falling apart. And it took like 4 days for me to come back.
I feel so weird because like maybe I just haven't been out long enough, but I feel like I've been like I feel much better,
Well, that's just a measure of how profoundly damaged you are as a human being. That tour to you is like a nice warm shower. It's like a hug from your mom.
I feel like I'm the guy in that story, the Stephen King story. I would be some weird fucked up person that gets addicted to going through the fucking teleportation machine, Well,
that's the other thing, is that when you come back from tour, you're like, that was a fucking nightmare. I'm never going to go out again until 3 days later, and then you're like, where are we going?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like getting a tattoo or something. It's such a rush that you get hooked on the buzz, the endorphins or whatever. Yeah. I don't know. How do we put a fucking a period on the end of this thing? What did you get out of this?
I need to get rid of the van.
The van, it's a piece of shit.
It's just, it really is. So it's not just that we're like, sometimes we were just sort of riding in silence, and occasionally we're like listening to music, but most of the time we were like, workshopping bits or jokes or our material at the fucking top of our lungs, like screaming at each other in a wind tunnel of like, am I over tagging that? Like,
yeah, that van is so funny because you roll the windows up and you're used to in a vehicle kind of having this weird like sensation when a window reaches the top where it's like there's a little air seal and everything gets quieter, and that just doesn't happen, and it's so like jarring and feels odd to just be like, oh, nope, I'm just outside. I'm not actually in a room. I'm just in four walls, you know?
Yeah.
For anyone who's listening who's maybe aware of the Stanhope world or whatever, James Inman, who I talked about at one point on this podcast, is this guy who was in this group full of comedians that were like booked by Doug Stanhope to do a tour called the Unbookables or whatever. Anyway, then me and him got into some big weird internet fight. Well, I was thinking about that in the tour in the van, because the van that we toured in is the Unbookables van. It's from the Unbookables tour, and it's got a fucking thing on the back. It says it's the Unbookables tour. And so I had this weird thing where I was like, well, I got this huge fight with James Inman where he, you know, had a meltdown on me or whatever, and now I'm like in his old house, kind of, and there's this like ghost of him in the back that I felt.
I don't know why we weren't tagging him in every single post, like hashtagging like the Unbookables. It's not too late. We'll get a picture of you like at the back of the van announcing Unbookables 3.
Yeah.
You know,
super unbookable. It's also so funny because he like when me and him got into that thing, he was flexing on me real hard as a comedian or whatever, and was like, you know, I could do fucking time, I could do sets around you in circles and all this shit, and it's like, you know, for us both to have been touring in the Unbookables van, I think that means that neither of us are a comedian.
It's like all the you know reels you see on YouTube of like the two high school kids punching each other at the same time, both knocking each other out and just falling down.
Yeah. Oh man.
No, I mean I feel like Amarillo was a good sort of capstone where
I feel like we were each on separate quests here, and something definitely happened to you in Amarillo where you took a turn, man.
To recap, Amarillo, like I'd been through there like 6 months ago, and I lost a ton of, I just left a fucking whole load of laundry in the dryer, which that's like as valuable as gold when you're on the road. And we came back through, and then my fucking laundry, 6 months later, my laundry was there, clean and folded, waiting for me. And I was just this fucking weird road miracle. And then I went into the doctor for a full checkup when I was in New York, and I got my lab work back 20 minutes later, and I was like, like fucking everything was good, everything was great, and so I was like, you know, Jake, I can't drink, so you're gonna get drunk tonight to celebrate. I feel like, I don't know if you said something non-committal or snide of like, well, or of like, God forbid, or if it was something of like, well, you can't force me to get drunk.
Yeah.
And then I just had and I don't like think on stage. I just fucking say my stuff. I'm not a fucking riffing guy. I don't like. Yeah. But then I just had the idea of, I was like, ladies and gentlemen, you know, please help me celebrate tonight Jake Flores' birthday. He loves tequila. I have no idea if you like tequila. I just assumed I hate tequila. I assumed you hated it too. And I was like, what's the worst thing I can think of? He really loves Jaeger bombs.
Yeah. I actually do kind of like Jaeger bombs, but I know they're bad for me. I do like tequila. There are drinks that I hate, and I'm not going to tell you what they are now.
For the next tour. And then you're such a practiced drunk, which that's a weird compliment, that it's impossible to really see like, you know, a huge change in your demeanor. which I don't know if that means you hold your alcohol well or you're just wet-brained. But at one point I saw you get, it's like your walk got a little squiggly.
Yeah.
And also you seemed happy for a brief moment.
That's how you know when to cut me off. I'm smiling.
Jake appears to be having a good time.
I've
One more round of piss for my friend.
I've always been really good at not seeming drunk, and I think it's because I started drinking when I was real young, and like did dumb shit, like drove around the neighborhood and would have to deal with cops and stuff. And so like one time I remember I was out in front of the Velveeta Room in Austin, and no one, I guess, could tell I was shit-faced, and was just standing around smoking a cigarette. And I had the cigarette backwards. I had lit it, smoking the filter or whatever. And my friend Eric came up to me and he went, "Hey," he pointed at the cigarette and he went, "Turn it around." And I went, "What?" And he went, "Turn it around." And then I spun in a circle and then kept smoking the cigarette. And he was like,
"That's amazing.
Oh my God. Are you in there?" You know? And I didn't do it as a bit. I literally was like, "Turn it around."
How can I get rid of this guy?
Yeah. Well, I feel like the show before that, you were kind of, unhappy with some things. And then after that, if I was going to be, if I was doing a tarot reading about our tour, like we had talked about at one point, that would remind me of the trope of the Wheel of Fortune, which is, it's a wheel, and it's got fucking things on all four corners of the card, and the understanding you're supposed to get from it is that life is a constant. Even though in the moment you feel a certain way, it's like things go back up, and then sometimes the opposite night will happen, and things feel terrible and they come back down or whatever. But I felt good. You seemed like you were having a much better time after that.
Yeah. Part of it is like just getting your legs on the road, and this is sort of a short run, and like it was after Amarillo, where I felt like both of us just sort of like did battle that night, and then I was like good and okay with things from there on out. But also, it's like you forget. We imagine there's all these things that we imagine to be static or binary, of like forgiveness, that you forgive someone and then it's over. It's like I have to forgive my dad basically every day I'm awake. It's just to remind myself, he's forgiven, and shit like that. And, and you learn stuff on the road, and then you forget it, and you have to sort of like, relearn it. And you reminded me of that, of like just regardless of how the audience reacts or doesn't react, like, was your set good? Did you line shit up in the right way? Did you say it correctly? Did you hit the fucking beats you wanted to hit? And then if you did, then it's a good night. And then also I got to find the source of this quote, but don't play to the empty seats. Like when you're at a show, there's going to be empty seats. You're not playing to those people. Get that out of your fucking head. Play to the people who are there,
Yeah, one thing I noticed about watching Mark Maron one time live, which he's, comedy's father at this point, and he's our idiot, boomer dad, and he's a punchline. He's easy to make fun of, but, he didn't get that way on accident. He's very good at stand-up when he chooses to be. And I just remember being in the audience one time and noticing that he makes direct eye contact with people, and I was like, that's insane, and it totally works.
Dude, I saw him in the basement of UCB in like 2005, which was before I got sober and before he got like Maron famous.
Yeah.
And it was me and like 20 or 25 other people, and it was not funny, but it was memorable.
Yeah.
It was incredibly moving, and he was basically just sort of talking about how his life fell apart, and I went up to him afterwards and I was like, man, I can't say that like I enjoyed that, but it helped me, and it did. And he didn't really talk about sobriety or whatever, but that ended up being one of the things that sort of pushed me to finally like get my shit together. And I guess it still informs what I do today, of like, not everything is funny.
Another theme of the tour.
Yes.
Who are you guys? No, I'm not gonna do Maron shit. Well, this has been interesting for me because, you know, you run a house for wayward comedians and fucking broken people.
Don't put that on the podcast.
Right, we'll cut that out.
That's fine. That's fine.
We won't tell anyone where we are.
Undisclosed location.
But I certainly needed to come out here, and this whole thing ended on an interesting note for me, which is that our last show was on Valentine's Day. Which seemed, I'm going to tell the story.
Good.
It seemed too on the nose. It almost seemed like, did you book us a sad bastard tour that ends on Valentine's Day? You know? But something pretty funny happened to me the other night, which is that we got here. I had one more, you know, night of shows to play, and I had 3 fucking shows to kind of cap off this tour. Plus, you know, the one I did the other night, but I was exhausted. And the 3rd show I did the other night on fucking Valentine's Day, some chick heckled me from the audience, and I guess she heckled me so hard that we ended up making out afterwards. And it was that's hilarious, and you know, that's a pretty good comedy story, and I'll, you know, keep that in my pocket forever. But the other thing that happened is that I hung out with her, and she ended up being, you know, way too human, and you know, told me a lot of stories about, you know, why she was out here. We're both kind of, you know, touring or transient or whatever, and just bumped into each other, I suppose. But she told me a lot of stories that involving, you know, death and hospitals and misery and all this stuff that I won't, like, you know, air dirty laundry or fucking go into or whatever. But it kind of made me, you know, not that misery is a contest or whatever, but it did definitely put things in perspective, and, you know. And then I also realized, oh, that's why this person is out here fucking traveling around and getting fucked up and heckling comedy shows, whether or not I agree with that one, you know. You go, you know, you look at people sometimes and you realize, oh, life's very short and we're all gonna fucking die, and that kind of had a weight on me, and it put a period on the end of this tour for me a little bit, where I went, maybe that's part of what I should be taking home from this, you know. I feel a little bit less like certain things are extremely important that I maybe thought were before. And this feels weird to be saying as someone who's getting older, I guess, because you're supposed to then, you know, settle down and become more normal. But I guess maybe there's a fork in the road at some point where I'm like, nope, it's going to get weirder, I guess. You know?
Yeah.
I have to pick one or the other. But yeah, that shit was fucking crazy.
I love the, like, Doogie Howser ending to that, of the, like, I really learned a lot from that heckler.
I did, man. Those are the people I learned shit from, are like the people I fight with, you know, the people I do battle with. It's my birthday today. I'm turning 42 years old. I'm fucking depressed as hell. Part of it, I think, is just like chemical depression of, like, the end of tour. But then there's also the very real thing of, like, I'm the youngest now that I will ever be. The last thing I feel before I go to sleep is pain. The first thing I feel when I wake up in the morning is pain. I fucking, like, you know, dive for the bottle of Advil in the morning the way I used to fucking dive for a Coors Light. You know, and it's like, oh, it's all downhill from here. You know, it's like, what's the, like, are you fucking kidding me? You know, I mean, that's like, that was one of the things about, you know, quitting drinking, is I was just like, I just got to find a way to live, you know? Yeah.
And, I mean, hopefully that's, like, some of the shit that you got out of this tour of, like, we got to move forward, you know? And, like, just finding a way to fucking stumble forward.
Yeah. Well, this has been True Detective. This season
That was uplifting as shit.
Time's a flat circle, baby. Tour is a flat circle.
Do you want me to play a song?
Hell yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Let me grab a guitar and I'll tune it up.
Yeah. We'll put a cap on this thing by playing a song. I'll probably go back and maybe, you know, give you a proper intro before we launch into this interview or whatever. Because I just realized my listeners, who are, like, probably fans of mine, a lot of them probably know who you are, because, you know, people can come out to these shows and stuff. but some may not. And so if you don't know Mishka Shubaly's music, I'm a big fan of his, quite literally. I met him because I was hanging out at one of his shows, and then his career went down when mine was going up. And
Dick.
now we're touring, either because I'm successful or because he's doing bad, depending on how you look at it. But Mishka, you play music that is, loved by the depressed, the drunk, and the sad, and it's very lyrically brilliant, and I'm very into it. And also, if you like Mishka's music, he's a phenomenal writer, and you should read his books and everything, Amazon Kindle singles, etc. But yeah, so I guess in order to put a cap on this, you're gonna play us a couple songs.
Yeah. This song is called "This Road Has Tolls." It's a line that Glenn Wool stole from Google Maps, and I'm stealing it back. Hold on yesterday's t-shirt, some jeans from the day before. Well, I got every single color of black rock and roll skull t-shirt. Now remind me what I'm dying for. I feel like I'm losing the narrative, speaking a language I no longer understand, hammering it out on the highway, crying as fast as I can. This road has tolls. It eats up your tires, your time, your mind, your soul. The free drinks ain't free. And if I ever make it home, I'll find home has lost everything, made it home to me. Remember that corny old poem about Jesus and footprints in the sand? Well, you can hold me a middle seat on the Greyhound to hell, 'cause I'm not gonna understand. They say God protects fools and drunkards. Well, that hasn't been my experience at all. Only one set of footprints in the hardest of times, 'cause you poked me with a stick while I crawled. This road has tolls. It eats up your tires, your time, your mind, your soul. The free drinks, the cocaine, honey. This hotel room wasn't free. If I ever make it home, find home has lost everything, made it home to me. And if I ever make it home, will find home has lost everything, made it home to me.
Man, I had the dumbest thought while you were saying that, which is that I was like, oh yeah, like I've heard you play this song, you know, on these shows, and I was like, man, I'm really glad I'm recording this so I can like listen to it later if I want to. I wonder why people don't do that. Well, I was like, wait a minute, I just invented, like I just invented the age-old practice of recording music so you can listen to it.
Are you gonna write Back to the Future? Is that this wacky idea?
Mishka, synchronicity.
Great Scott!
I called us Rick and Morty earlier. That's based on Back to the Future.
God damn it!
I'm going crazy. This is it. This is the end of the tour for sure. We've had like 5 ends of the tour. We're recording this a little bit after we recorded that last section because I don't know, podcasting or whatever. I didn't really know where to end this thing, but since then we did the Moth. I fucking won, and that was the end of the tour, and now it's the end of the tour again.
It's like a coke fuck, you know, you're like, no, I'm there. Oh, wait, no, let's try it again.
Yeah, but I did remember something since, you know, we stopped recording, and you always remember shit right after you stop recording, is I think the period I wanted to put on this whole tour and on what we were talking about in terms of like writing on the road and stuff is that last song you played is something I noticed that became a song this tour, and the last time we went out about 6 months ago, that was something that had just happened to you and that was fresh, and you were writing jokes about it kinda, and it's interesting to see like where I don't know what happened in between, you know, the 6 months between these tours or whatever, but the thing I've been thinking about in terms of using this, like, the act of performing as a way of, you know, beating out these bits and songs and stuff and, like, processing this stuff creatively, to me it seems like the only way to do this anymore. I really don't like doing stand-up in New York that much because it feels very static. It's like, oh, I can write you the songs, I can fucking do the jokes that I already wrote, but I'm not really living in them, and I feel like I'm very much living in them when we're out here doing this shit like every night. And I felt that way when we did the Moth the other night, and we both had like stories to tell that were kind of like, we were like writing them in the seats before we went up and stuff.
Well, it's interesting for me too because there is this sort of like hot potato heartbreak that we've been sort of tossing back and forth. Where like the last time that we went out, I was just like totally fucking ripped up and raw, and you were like, "No, man, love is real."
Yeah.
and yeah, it swung the other way. But it's I mean, one of the things that I heard that was good and interesting and sort of speaks to this was it was actually I think it's a minister in Denver, somebody who's I don't know if they're affiliated with the Moth or whatever, but she wrote about what she said was write from the scar, not the wound. You know, which is to say that, you know, sometimes like shit happens to you and you can just fucking write it, and you're like, oh, a funny thing happened to me on the way to the stadium. But other times there are things that happen to you that where like it knocks something loose inside you, and you have to like sort of give it a minute for shit to settle, or for you. I mean, this sounds really fucking new age, but for you to heal enough that you can put pressure on that part, you know,
just be present and just heat your crystals up in the microwave. You know, that opens them up to. No, I know what you mean though, because like, especially for me as like a stand-up, like it's so fucking weird when your life changes because all the material you're writing is on a delay. So when you go on tour, you're like, I've spent the last 2 years like cooking this material that's all like, for me, the shit that I was performing every night was like really manic and like extroverted and about like society and stuff, and then I'd get off stage and be like, because I was processing all this personal stuff. And it wasn't until the end of the tour that I even got to a point where I was like, oh, I can now sort of write about the shit that I was feeling at the beginning of the tour that I'm now not anymore, because it's like starting to scab over and shit. But there's always this disconnect you kind of have with any audience, or like even just the shit you're personally working on. You can't write the song right as you're like fucking, seppukuing yourself over it, I guess.
It's weird because I think of that set that Tig Notaro did, where she had like just gotten a cancer diagnosis or something.
Yeah.
And there is a thing that happens where it's sort of like your life experience crystallizes enough that then it becomes material. And we are sort of like farming our own grief or our own embarrassment or humiliation or whatever into like, all right, I'm going to put this to a 3-4 time signature with a jaunty hook, and like this will make the kids buy t-shirts, or this will make somebody feel something, or
it'll get the kids to bop.
Yes. There's a line in the last song, This Road Has Tolls, about crying as fast as I can. And that was like the second day of what turned out to be a 5-month run, and I guess I should just tell I was driving, and I had just ended a relationship and like driven away from a girl I was still totally in love with, and then you had this thing happen of like, it's the second day on the road. I'm halfway through the second 7-hour drive, and I like looked at my phone and saw a picture of the woman who was now my ex, who had up until that point been my girlfriend. Saw a picture of her on Instagram, and she just looked like so beautiful and so happy without me, and both so present, and so like immediately, like I could have fucking just turned around and gone back to her. But also is the kind of thing where it's like a death, where it's like, oh, they're lost forever. Like people who were fucking alive yesterday are dead today, and I just started crying as hard as I've ever fucking cried, just like instant snot, tears, like fucking convulsing behind the wheel.
It'd been so funny if you got pulled over by a cop and he was like, "Excuse me, sir," and then you rolled out the window and he's just like horrified.
I feel like I have had a run-in like that with the cops before, where they're like, fuck it, man, just, you're fine. Like, we don't want to know.
Yeah.
A guilty man can't cry that hard. And so when I was crying that hard, I just like took my foot off the accelerator for a split second and slowed down a bit, and somebody honked at me, and without even thinking about it, I just said, "Fuck you, I'm crying as fast as I can." And in that moment, it was not funny at all. It was just a raw nerve. But then I was trying to do my like prepared material that night on stage, and I was falling apart, and I was like, fuck it, you guys, like this is just going to be a weird show, and here's why this is going to be a weird show. And I told them exactly what had happened, and without even thinking that people would respond to it one way or another, but just that it's like vomiting. I was just like, I just have to get it out. And everybody laughed. And then they all fucking paid attention and zeroed in. And then that, the like crying as fast as I can thing, that just became the sort of theme that came up again and again in that tour. And then now it's in a song, and it feels weird because it's sort of, it's like, writing an inside joke about like shitting your pants or something into a song, and then people will hear it and laugh or sing along, and the whole time you're like, that was a moment of profound discomfort. And
it went from being sad to a joke, and then back to being sad in a song somehow a bunch of times.
Yeah,
in a way that might have been lost on the, I guess, if an external listener was trying to track, well, what does this mean? But I mean, saw the whole thing, so it makes perfect sense.
Well, it's like watching somebody just sort of like flipping a knife and catching it in the bar, and like sometimes they catch the handle and sometimes you catch the blade.
Yeah.
And but what's weird for me is that then when we did the Moth the other night, now, like, you know, I talked to Maddie and she was like, I forgive you, and now we have a good sort of weird relationship, and you haven't made peace with shit.
Oh yeah, I almost cried on stage the other night.
Yeah, that was weird. It was weird for me watching you doing that because I was feeling for you, and also I was like, oh god damn it, finally I'm seeing fucking Jake feel an emotion for once on this goddamn tour. I mean, it's like, that's one of the reasons I like touring with you, is that if I'm like, all right, the show got canceled tonight, you're like, all right, and if I'm like, there's 1,000 pre-sales, you're like, all right, you know, and you're unflappable. And then it was like, so as your friend, I was like happy to see you finally like starting to deal with that shit. And as somebody who cares about you, I was like, you know, oh God, I can see that hurts. And also as somebody who was competing against you, I was like, motherfucker, you just won. Like, you're going to cry in front of all these people. They're going to love you for it.
That's the most perverted part of it, is when you see your friend like going through some shit and you're like, oh, they're going to make so much, like, they're going to get so many likes out of this.
I know. Yeah.
This is going to fucking crush.
I remember watching Christine Levine perform, and she was just killing. And I was like, man, I wish I was really fat and really sick so I could have material like that. And then I was like, you're a fucking asshole. Like, but it's, yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have any kind of like fucking summary about that, you know, the too long don't read of like, this is the moral of like, this is when your grief becomes material or it becomes a joke, or this is when it stops being, you know, something that, you know, you have to fucking go cry in the bathroom at Chuck E. Cheese, or it's a bit, you know. But
yeah, I mean, I don't have an answer, and I also don't even have a proper question. I just kind of tend to like, I think you're kind of a fool if you get to the end of one of these things and you're like, and that's why this was the greatest summer vacation ever. Like, if there's like a point to it. Yeah. But if you just poke it with a stick and fucking turn it around a bunch of times, you might be able to glean something out of it just by even turning this microphone on, and then us like having a conversation where we're like, all right, I have to find some meaning in the next 10 minutes or something. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like most important, you know, things in life, more question marks. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the other thing too is that, I mean, I think that's what, you know, we talked about like, you know, doing the same set, hitting the same marks, hitting the same jokes for different crowds every night, and some nights like a fucking joke will kill, you know, and like you didn't do your funniest bits for the Moth the other night, but you got your biggest laughs because that was a crowd that's not like a comedy crowd with their arms folded of like, all right, let's see how fucking funny you are, funny man.
Yeah. Well, also like those crowds are like they have a certain psychology to them where like, if I did what is, I think, my funniest bits, they would have been horrified. If I got up and done the fucking McGruff the crime dog prolapse asshole joke, they wouldn't have gone for it. But I watched that audience, and like the NPR type crowds are so funny because like they're adults, but if you say like ass, they go like oh, you know, because they're kind of square. And so yeah, I think you were right though. I mean, you kind of advised me on which jokes would probably work, and you're right. Well,
but it was funny too, like to be there. That like for us, I just found out 24 hours before. I was like, oh fuck, the Moth's happening. We're going. You're doing this, and then sitting there with you, because I've done a ton of those things, and I was hearing the stories and then listening to you think. And I could sort of hear you making, because you're an inveterate performer. It's what you do. And it, you know, the thing we were talking about in the car of like taking a bite of food and instantly being able to see the entire list of ingredients. You know, it's like so I could hear you making decisions making calculated, like reptilian decisions in your mind of like, this is going to work, this isn't going to work, the percentage of this working, the probability of this working, but then you went up there. And with these, you know, sort of like statistical analysis of how do I beat this this Rubik's Cube, but then you felt a thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's like, you know, and that's the point where it becomes real, you know, where it like, digital reverb, it's an algorithm, but at a certain point it stops being zeros and ones and it's just a sound, and it evokes an emotion.
When you play a song, you're using chords that you sat and learned and trained your hand to turn into the claw that makes a fucking C chord or whatever. And so you were using, you're filling a structured thing with the, you know, weird ether, like crazy personal, you know, quantifiable thing. And so you're making like a mishmash of those two things. And for me, that's like, that's how I know how to write a story or whatever, especially with that audience, especially with The Moth, because it was like, well, I already have the skills to speak publicly, even though this isn't exactly stand-up or whatever. Like, yeah, I was like kind of trying to figure out how to build like a fucking container to fill with what I was going to talk about. So it's weird because it's not entirely synthetic and it's not entirely completely, you know, just fucking pure or whatever. But that's also like what creativity kind of is, you know.
I feel like the moment where you started to lose it a little bit, it was sort of like a magician who's an expert at like close magic getting up there and like doing the trick and then accidentally making the assistant actually disappear. You know, that like you're you know, we get up there like sort of trying to perform illusions, and then every once in a while actual magic happens, and when it does, it's fucking, I mean, it's a thrill. It's definitely, but it's also unnerving, you know. I mean, it's like we are gambling addicts, you know, and that's why we keep coming back to performing, is because you can fucking do the same thing every single night, and every single night you get a fucking different result, and that's why it's interesting. But I don't know, it all came together a few night, man. That was great.
Well, maybe if it comes out in time, I'll link to this. Although the more I'm thinking about it, I'm like, you know, I posted like, I won the Moth, and all these people are like, can I hear it? I'm like, maybe not. That sucked. Like, and it was like that moment where in the middle where I was like getting fucked up about it. Part of it was because I was getting fucked up about it. Another part of it was because I was like, oh shit, what do I say next? I haven't really thought. This is a rough draft, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Well, the other thing is like rough drafts, that's life. Like, you don't, you know, your first day on the job, you don't fucking get to have 6 first days on the job to perfect the ultimate first day on the job. Like, you just have to fucking learn how to cook the hamburgers on the fly or whatever. And like,
yeah, material also sucks when it's like, you know, every beat in the fucking joke.
Yeah. Because
then you're not living in it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're like a super fucking, like, technical writer comedian, I guess it's like cool, like, it makes sense. But for me, like, as soon as I perfected a bit, now it's not funny anymore. Like, it has to be almost fucking done. Otherwise, I feel like a robot, and if I feel like a robot, then I sound like a robot.
Yeah.
But,
wait, I mean, if you think about it, like preparing a fine meal for somebody and taxidermy are very similar and also radically different. You know, if you were expecting roast beef and I brought out a taxidermied raccoon, well, you'd probably be delighted. But
I would think it was pretty cool. I'd probably put it next to that guitar you tried to sell me today. For anyone listening, Mishka tried to sell me a guitar that is
still trying to sell you.
It's got it's got like granite sort of finish on it of like a kitchen countertop, and then someone apparently it was a great guitar, but someone who owned it before you carved Dimebag Daryl into the side of it with his own tiny guitar, shredding a guitar on the guitar. So it's like when you see a truck with the mural of the truck on the back of the truck. There's just a little guy playing a guitar on the guitar.
He's playing heavy meta.
Oh, God.
Tour's over.
Tour's fucking over, yeah.
Tour is canceled. So I'm sorry for that. Like, sometimes it just feels like farting in an elevator.
No, it's the only thing that makes me laugh anymore. the worst jokes. Mr. BMW and all that shit. Well, I guess we should probably play this song. I'll ask you in the fashion of Jerry Springer if you have any final thoughts.
I mean, no. I want to go to bed. I've got to get up early.
Yeah.
This has been a good one, though.
Yeah.
You know.
For sure, man. From this tour, I feel like I definitely am going to be on the road a bunch after this, so, you know, until we meet again, I suppose.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, we were talking today about the, like, how to be a songwriter or performer or whatever. Like, part of what you learn is, like, returning emails or how to fucking market yourself or all that shit. And, like, I have a weird bittersweet thing about it because I feel like I learned so much more about storytelling, writing jokes, performing, managing your mental illness on the road, like from you being on this trip. And I feel like I gave you the, like, I'm the, like, paperclip guy in the Microsoft Word where I was like, yeah, here's how to fucking get a guarantee for a show or whatever.
Yeah.
But that shit's integral, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't have a good solid, like, program in my head for that. I still have the disease of a fucking self-conscious comedian where someone's like, how much money do you need for this? And I'm like, whatever you can spare. And that's not how you fucking do this, you know?
Yeah. Bill's got to get paid.
Yeah.
All right, should I fucking play us out?
Yeah, Clippy, right-clicking on Clippy, the bearded fucking office assistant, and going, play me a song so we can end this podcast. I'm gonna do one of these poppers while this happens.
There's a capstone. What you call that, a popper?
I'm not gonna do a hard one because I still have to operate this computer. Just wanted a nice little buzz.
What is this song called? You Are the Song.
Cool.
You were the load-in, the sleepy sound engineer. You were the green room carpet, the stale smell of beer. You were the lingering presence as the sun died in the room. You were the drink tickets. You were the food. Scowling at the band. You were the laughing bingo ladies. You were the hostile doorman. You were the karaoke bros passing one ID around. You were the prettiest girl in this goddamn one muscle car town. You were the words, you were the beat, the melody, the song. Now you're everywhere, now that you're gone. You were the poorly grounded microphone, chalk in my mouth. You were the crowd getting restless as the show headed south. You were the shithead talking trash from the bathroom line while I was tearing my fucking heart out in 3/4 time. You were the words, you were the beat, the melody, the song. Now you're everything.
ashtray in a non-smoking room. You were late checkout in the early afternoon. You were something I've been chasing my whole wretched life. Something that won't let go of me no matter how hard I try. You were the words, you were the beat, the melody, the song, yeah. You were the words, you were the beat, the melody, the song. Now you're everywhere, now that you're gone. Now you're everything, now that you're gone. You're everything, everywhere, now that you're gone. I hope you fucking recorded that, because I played it.
Oh
right.
no, the recording.
We forgot to do the popper.
You call that a papa? Here's a popper.